the truth they will ridicule everything you say and do. It's all part of a deception. It's a puppet master's tool. And I've seen those craft shut down just beside those from 10 miles away. And there ain't nothing that the
roof of Broadcasting Building. I'm speaking from the roof of Broadcasting Building, New York City. The bells you hear are ringing to warn the people to evacuate the city as Martians approach. Estimated in the last 2 hours, 3 million people have moved out along the roads to the north. Hutchison River Parkway is still kept open for motor traffic. Floyd bridges to Long Island hopelessly jammed. All communication with Jersey Shore closed 10 minutes ago.
Coming to you from some far point station, like a cosmic tumbleweed, both north and south of the Pleiades. Here's your host, Gary Anderson.
And here I am. You're listening to me, Gary, on Night Dreams Talk Radio. Our guest tonight, Tom Witmore. Hey, Tom, are you still with us?
Yes, I am, sir, and I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm glad you're here. I mean, I was really worried about you, but, you know, I'm glad you were able to make it. Now, what do you think is going on about disclosure? I mean, your own gut feeling. Yeah, I've been in this for a long, long time, and I have heard so many times, oh, disclosure is around the corner. I heard that in my late 20s. I heard it in my 30s. I'm a year older than you, and I keep hearing it. You know, back here about 5 months ago, there was a lot of people that, well, another talk show host and a group of other people that claimed, oh, man, they had the proof that they were going to drop the bombshell. But you know what? It never happened. So what is your feeling?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question, and that ball really got rolling after Tom DeLonge and TTSA went public, you know, and started their publicity campaign. Now, I think if we go back historically just a few years, and I remember seeing the journalist Leslie Kean give a talk at a MUFON symposium, kind of as a side talk. But at that time, it was apparent that she had a connection with John Podesta, who, as we all know, is very highly connected in political circles. And I think that there was an intent, if Hillary Clinton was elected, that this circle of John Podesta, Leslie Kean, maybe an associate of hers at the New York Times, and then maybe a possible association with Tom DeLonge and this TTSA group, that if Hillary Clinton had been elected, there may have been at least some form of soft confirmation or even firm confirmation. And it's well known that Hillary Clinton had gone on at least one late night show, maybe two, and had been asked about the UFO problem, and she mentioned the UAP terminology and all that. And I think that it's possible that there was some kind of plan or intent that if she were elected, that there might have been at least some kind of confirmation. Now, as we all know, Hillary Clinton was not elected, and I have no idea what's going on behind the scenes with TTSA, but I think that regardless, they decided to go ahead and go public and start their campaign, you know, their information campaign. And this has contributed to this whole notion of imminent disclosure. Now, here's the problem, as I see it. Before they even get to any kind of quote-unquote full disclosure, And that's assuming that there is anything to disclose, okay? Before they ever get to that, I believe very strongly that for the American public to be ready, the government/NASA needs to disclose that they have confirmed at least microbial life on Mars. Okay? Now, if they do that, and I think we have a lot of reason to believe that they have the evidence, it's not the proof, then that will be the first step in preparing the public. Because once the public gets official confirmation that extraterrestrial life exists, then I think they're adequately being prepared for the next step. Okay, and there's a big difference between thinking that spacemen exist and you've been watching movies and all that. There's a big difference between that and the government, authority actually coming out and confirming the existence of extraterrestrial life, even if it's microbial. Now, for even confirmation to happen, and I think that up to this point, we've received a form of soft confirmation through these Tic Tac videos and a couple of things that have gone on publicly with the Navy. But to get to disclosure, we first have to get to that point of confirmation for the public, and the public has to be prepared. Now, how long is it going to take for the public to be ready, assuming that there's a deeper form of disclosure to be made? I don't know. And whether it's confirmation and or disclosure, it must come from authority. It doesn't matter how many times UFO groups like MUFON declare that, that UFOs are real. By authority, I mean either elite academia or establishment science, or the government, or the mainstream press. It's got to come from a source of authority, and I think if it comes from that with life on Mars, and that's the first step, and then we have to wait and wonder how long is it going to take the public to be ready for the next step. Now, assuming that there's anything to disclose, that is, if a saucer or one or more craft have been recovered with bodies and possibly even more involvement than that, assuming that's ever happened, we have to understand the dynamic that the people that are keeping these secrets have absolutely nothing to gain from disclosing that. In fact, they have a lot of liability because they've been lying to people for years. They've been lying to the American public for years. And there are a lot of hard questions that have to be answered. And I think that's why some of the people maybe like you and I that have been around longer and we've seen this come and go, we've gotten a little bit skeptical about the possibility of disclosure.
Well, I sure have. The one I was talking about is a talk show host up in Canada that wrote a book. I'm not going to mention his name, but, he was the bombshell. It was supposed to be all these documents that were in his book and all that. And I tell you, I hear somebody laughing, James, aren't you?
No.
But, that it came out and it's the same old. And that's the interesting part. Now, I also was watching a video here the other day. Our commander-in-chief had Buzz Armstrong, standing next to him, along with a couple other astronauts and famous people. And when the commander-in-chief basically made a joke about, there's really, actually, because he feels that there's no UFOs, no aliens, no nothing. And he kind of voiced that. And you could see Buzz's face, how, he was talking to himself right as soon as the president said that. I mean, because he has his own opinion that there is stuff out there. He claims that there is stuff out there. Then was he on the moon? He saw stuff. And I mean, if words or if face expressions could kill somebody, he would have killed the president right there on the spot.
That was priceless.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you've seen it, yourself. You've seen it with your own eyes. I mean, it's a little off-putting if somebody who hasn't had the experience is ridiculing it. Yeah, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, especially somebody who's a national hero, and he stood there and he just his composure. I'm sure you've seen that video, haven't you?
I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but I think I understand the dynamics of this in general.
Yeah. Well, Buzz was in total shock. I mean, he was like saying stuff with his mouth, under his, breath. But you could tell he was really pissed because here the commander-in-chief was saying that, basically aliens and UFOs are basically a figment of our imagination. They don't exist, and he doesn't recognize of them existing. And here's Buzz, just going off on it. It was kind of comical to watch.
James came out of his head.
James, did you see the video?
I did. If his eyes could say words, Buzz Aldrin's, it was speaking volumes. Because his eyes about come out of his head. You give him a double look. It was priceless. It was a look. Let me tell you.
And you could see him talking under his breath too, because his mouth was moving at a couple of times. That he was just like in shock and amazed that somebody would say what they were saying. He just like, wow. Well, he probably figured, why am I even here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and you also you have a little trouble making friends with him if you try to tell him he hasn't been to the moon at all.
Yeah. Yeah. But, these documents, and that's what you do. Don't you do a lot of research and documents and stuff like that?
Yes, sir. In fact, I moved here to Silver Spring, Maryland, so I could be 5 minutes away from the National Archives. And then I'm also close to the Library of Congress. So, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing.
How do you...
Go ahead, please.
No, how do you distinguish? I mean, there's so much, I hate to say it, forgeries out there that there's people out there I guess they just love cranking stuff out. Is that for disinformation, or are these type of people just love just doing stuff like this? Because, I mean, I get people sending me documents all the time by email. Hey, I got proof here, but you know what? You read it over and it just doesn't make logical sense, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the original set of MJ-12 documents were the Eisenhower briefing document and the Truman-Forrestal memo, and then later the Cutler-Twining memo. And, of course, those were controversial, and they're questioned documents. But since then, I've expanded the scope of what I call the history of the MJ-12 affair to include even some things that occurred before that in the 1970s and well into the 90s and even up to the present day. And particularly in the 90s, there was a torrent of documents that came into a researcher by the name of Timothy. And all the interesting ones are on a website, majesticdocuments.com, and anyone can go on there and look at them. But eventually I'm going to get to all this, but it's going to take a lot of work. A lot of work's already been done by the Woods, by Robert Wood and his son in looking at the documents. But I'm going to have to do a lot of work in looking at those. And some of them, obviously look like they have problems, like a lot of misspellings and a lot of typos and things. So one of the things I can do is I can confirm certain things. For example, one of the most famous of the original MJ-12 documents is a document known as the Cutler-Twining memo. And that was a document that built the UFO researchers during the 80s by the name of Bill Moore and Jamie Chandray. They had been receiving cryptic postcards in the mail, one of them at least from New Zealand, and giving them hints about where they could find a document